So here for the session 1, so what do we need to know and to read? So it's actually section 1, which I am recommending to read as a preparatory material for the in-class session. So, and in particular this section 1, and the most important subchapters are what is evolution, so covering both definitions and general outlook and a little bit of history. Then evidence for evolution. This is covering more paleontological line of research and contributions to the concepts, and from DNA to phenotypes. This is actually the most directly relevant chapter to our in-class session, covering variation, both genotypic and then phenotypic. 6 main concepts that you need to know in order to understand how the process of evolution causes a species to change over time, or in other words, the origin of biodiversity. That's a good news. There are only 6 main concepts, so manageable number. Crows can count up to the 7th, so probably even crows can learn that. So concept number 1, variation, which is the main subject of our session 1. So variation is a difference and between cells, individual organisms, groups of organisms, species, and so on. And we divide usually variation into genotypic variation and the phenotypic variation, like this. So more about this in the Princeton Guide of Evolution. Overproduction. Overproduction is the ability of species to produce more offspring than can possibly survive. That leads to the struggle for survival and the downstream to the generation of new species. This is the process of natural selection. So other concepts. Concept 3, competition. Competition is an interaction between organisms or species in which fitness of one is lowered by the presence of another one. So the limited supply of food, water, territory, and so on can lead to the competition. And adaptation. Adaptation sometimes is also called an adaptive trait, and is a trait with the current functional role in the life history of an organism that is maintained and evolved by means of natural selection. The remaining 2 concepts are natural selection, which is the fundamental concept introduced by Charles Darwin himself, and it states that by natural selection, any characteristic of individual helping it to increase its fitness will eventually spawn the whole population in the species, simply because those members will have more offspring. And speciation. So, of course, if we keep selecting some adaptive traits, at some point they might result into the speciation, which is evolutionary process by which new biological species arise. So let me overview those concepts. So concept 1, variation. Concept 2, overproduction. Concept 3, competition. Concept 4, adaptation. Natural selection. Finally, speciation. Working together, this all concepts result into the observed biodiversity. So now the question is, of course, how these concepts work together to cause a species to change over generations. So first of all, species tend to overproduce. This results to competition. And there's a variation in populations. Not all individuals are the same. And some of the variations are positive adaptations and increase fitness in the long run. So natural selection occurs, and those best adapted tend to survive and reproduce at higher rates, and natural selection changes the gene pool to favor those traits. So again, this results into biodiversity.